The Eastern Front of World War II, a theater of unparalleled scale and ferocity, witnessed conflicts on a scale unseen before or since. From June 1941 to May 1945, the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany engaged in a titanic struggle that claimed tens of millions of lives. Amidst the vast battlefields and cataclysmic clashes, an often overlooked yet utterly decisive factor was logistics, the intricate, arduous, and relentless process of supplying the Soviet war machine. This was a war not just of tanks and infantry, but of railroads, factories, and human endurance, pushing the limits of resource management in total. War understanding Soviet logistics is key to comprehending how the Red Army ultimately triumphed against the Wehrmacht. It reveals the immense effort behind every shell fired and every soldier fed, a testament to national mobilization. At the heart of Soviet logistical planning was the Stavka, the Supreme High Command, which delegated immense authority to the State Defense Committee, GKO. Led by Joseph Stalin, the GKO orchestrated the colossal mobilization of industry and resources with unprecedented centralization. Strategic direction for transportation fell primarily to the People's Commissariat for Railways, NKPS, under Lazar Kaganovich, who later became Deputy Prime Minister. Key figures within the logistics chain also included Lieutenant General Andrei V. Krylyov, the head of the Red Army Rear Services, whose department coordinated supply lines from production to the front. Navigating immense challenges, their paramount strategy was maintaining the unceasing flow of vital supplies, ammunition, fuel, food, and reinforcements to the sprawling front lines, which stretched for thousands of kilometers. A critical initial decision, driven by the urgency of Operation Barbarossa, was the mass evacuation of industrial capacity. Between July and December 1941, over 2,500 factories, including crucial armaments plants like the Kharkov tractor plant and the Electrostal steel works, were meticulously dismantled, loaded onto trains, and relocated eastward to the safety of the Urals, Siberia, and Central Asia. This unprecedented feat of engineering and human will saved the Soviet industrial base from German occupation and proved pivotal in regenerating the war economy. Furthermore, the Soviet doctrine emphasized a centralized, planned economy, which, despite its inherent rigidities in peacetime, proved remarkably effective in rapidly allocating wartime resources and dictating production quotas. Lend-Lease aid from the Western Allies, particularly the United States, also became a strategic pillar, ultimately providing millions of tons of crucial materials and equipment. These interwoven components reoriented domestic production, successful industrial relocation, efficient transport networks, and substantial foreign aid formed the comprehensive logistical strategy that relentlessly sustained the Red Army through years of brutal combat. The initial months of Operation Barbarossa were a logistical catastrophe for the Soviets. The rapid German advance overran vast territories, destroying or capturing immense stockpiles of equipment, food, and fuel. Soviet railways, already strained, faced systematic destruction by the retreating Red Army's scorched earth policy and relentless Luftwaffe bombing. This created an immediate, profound crisis, severely testing the nascent wartime logistics system. The challenge was not just moving goods, but producing them while under existential threat and repairing infrastructure simultaneously. Following the industrial evacuation, a monumental effort began to reassemble factories and resume production in their new, remote locations. Often, production started in makeshift conditions, even before permanent buildings were complete. By late 1942, these relocated industries, alongside new plants, were churning out tanks like the T-34, aircraft such as the Ilyushin Il-2 Sturmovik, and vast quantities of artillery and ammunition. This domestic output, fueled by immense human labor, became the primary source of the Red Army's materiel. The railway system, however, remained the absolute backbone of Soviet logistics. Despite the loss of thousands of locomotives and hundreds of thousands of wagons early in the war, The NKPS demonstrated incredible resilience. Specialized railway repair battalions, often working under enemy fire, swiftly restored damaged lines. A major challenge was the difference in railway gauges. Soviet broad gauge 1,520 meter versus European standard gauge 1,435 meter. As the Red Army advanced westward, converting captured German lines to Soviet gauge or laying new broad gauge tracks became a continuous, urgent task, executed with astonishing speed by railway troops and civilian laborers. This ensured uninterrupted supply to advancing armies. Lend-Lease aid, though often underestimated by some historians, played a critical supplementary role. From 1941, vital supplies began arriving through perilous Arctic convoys to Murmansk and Arkhangelsk, the Persian corridor via Iran, and the Soviet Far East. The United States provided approximately 400,000 trucks, including the iconic Studebaker US-6, which became the workhorse of Red Army transport, vastly improving mobility. Other critical items included 1,900 locomotives and 11,000 railway cars, 13,000 combat aircraft, 7,000 tanks, vast quantities of high-octane aviation fuel, industrial machinery, strategic raw materials, and millions of tons of foodstuffs. These resources significantly alleviated bottlenecks in Soviet domestic production, allowing them to focus on heavy armaments. During major Soviet offensives, logistics became an art form. For Operation Uranus in November 1942, which encircled the German Sixth Army at Stalingrad, massive stockpiles of ammunition, fuel, and winter clothing were secretly amassed over weeks, relying heavily on the railway network and then onward movement by trucks and horse-drawn transport. Similarly, Operation Bagration in June 1944, the largest Soviet offensive of the war, saw unprecedented logistical support for four fronts, including the rapid construction and repair of forward airfields and the establishment of thousands of kilometers of new railway lines and roads to sustain the rapid advance into Belarus. Engineers and pioneer battalions worked tirelessly to bridge rivers and clear mines, ensuring the Red Army's relentless forward momentum. The sheer scale of coordination required for these operations was immense, often involving millions of tons of supplies and hundreds of thousands of personnel moving simultaneously. The logistical battle was also won against nature. The infamous Rasputitsa, the spring and autumn mud seasons rendered roads impassable, forcing reliance on railways and tracked vehicles. Bitter Soviet winters froze rivers for transport, but also strained equipment and personnel. Partisan attacks behind German lines, while disrupting Wehrmacht logistics, also occasionally interfered with Soviet supply movements in recaptured territories. Despite these colossal obstacles, the Soviet logistics system persevered, adapting and evolving under immense pressure, proving to be a decisive factor in the ultimate victory. The success of Soviet logistics had profound and far-reaching consequences. Militarily, it directly enabled the Red Army to sustain its massive operations. From the defense of Moscow to the counteroffensives at Stalingrad and Kursk, and finally the drive to Berlin. Without the steady flow of supplies, ammunition, and replacements, the Red Army's offensives would have faltered, and its defensive capabilities would have been severely compromised. It was the material foundation upon which tactical and strategic victories were built. Humanly, the logistical effort demanded immense sacrifice. Millions of civilians, many of them women and children, toiled in factories and on railways, often in harsh conditions, facing starvation and disease. Their contributions, though less visible than those of frontline soldiers, were equally vital to the war effort. Politically, the wartime mobilization further entrenched the centralized control of the Soviet state, demonstrating its capacity for total war. Geopolitically, the Soviet Union emerged from the war with a vastly expanded industrial base, having honed its logistical capabilities into a powerful instrument of state power, solidifying its position as a global superpower in the nascent Cold War era. The legacy of this logistical effort continues to influence military thinking and infrastructure development to this day. The Eastern Front's logistical struggle offers critical lessons in the mechanics of modern Warfare. It underscores that logistics is not merely a supporting function, but the very bedrock of military capability. The Soviet experience demonstrated the power of centralized planning, national mobilization, and immense human perseverance in overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. It also highlighted the vital interconnectedness of international aid, as Lend-Lease proved crucial in augmenting Soviet domestic efforts, particularly in transport and strategic materials. The silent heroes of the railway lines, the factories, and the supply depots often determined the fate of battles fought hundreds, even thousands, of kilometers away. To continue exploring the pivotal moments that shaped our world and understanding the often hidden forces behind them, subscribe and join our community. What aspect of the Soviet logistical effort during World War II resonates with you the most? Or what further questions does it raise? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below.